Hello. Hello.
How's it going? I think I need to make my camera a bit higher. Can you
Yeah,
actually, how much can you see?
I see from your glasses to the top of your t-shirt, which
Okay.
I can't wait to talk about because I recognize it
Oh, what? You recognize my shirt?
from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, hold on. Let's try this height. Okay, that's better.
that's good. All right. So everyone's just joining in. I think we have a couple more minutes. So how are you? I mean, this is totally like it's funny. It's the pregame. We are in pregame mode of
Yeah.
IG Live. Just like waiting for people to join.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm pretty good. I've been having trouble like maintaining my like inner temperature today.
Oh,
Because I got
really?
yeah. So I accidentally sliced my hand with an X-Acto knife like 2 days ago. And
Oh,
so I had to get a tetanus shot, but I had never gotten a tetanus shot before. And I
okay.
didn't know that it's basically a vaccination. And so I'm like sitting in bed, like, why am I so tired? What is
Right.
going on? Like, I feel like super fatigued. My body is achy, even though I like didn't go skating. What is the deal? And I'm sitting here like, man, I must be really overworking myself. And then I was like, wait a second. I literally just got a tetanus shot. That is
Yeah.
what's causing this.
Oh my gosh. Is it your drawing hand?
No, thankfully.
Right, because it's obvious. Oh, because it's the X-Acto knife, so that would have been your drawing hand. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I was doing something really stupid and I cut my hand. So thankfully, I live really close to an urgent care and it was very quickly like in and out. Let's stitch you up and get you out of here. So
Oh, that's good. Now,
yeah,
was it gory?
it was pretty gory. I mean, like there was blood everywhere. Like I was trying to like clean up blood, but also like keep my hand wrapped at the same time. And my spouse, Kia, he was like, "Don't worry about that. We need to go."
Oh, I love it. I love how like your brain is you're like, no, I gotta clean this up, but I'm
I
bleeding.
know. Look at
But
this
I'm bleeding.
mess that I made. But yeah, it's like probably the deepest cut I've like gotten. I think the last time that I had stitches, I was 9 years old, and I had like fallen and hit my head on a banister, and I just remember having to get stitches for that, and it was like so painful. And I'm like realizing like why it was so painful now that I've gotten it done again. It was like, oh, okay, I wasn't like I was just a child.
Right.
So yeah. But other than that, it's been pretty good.
So we have a few more people joining in. As they do, just I mean, this is a good time to say we are. Do you want to leave the comments on? I think it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. So we'll leave the comments on. Once our conversation is done, I'll check there for questions, but you can also use the little question button to leave a question if you'd like. And we'll have Steenz answer it in the time we have. Yeah, so I guess let me do like take a beat and then we'll start.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks. So thanks everyone for joining, and for those who are tuning in for the playback. For the second episode of Aloud, Hello Barkada's live stream interview series, in which artists and writers are invited to share aloud their influences and intentions behind their latest works. I'm Pasalo Norland, and I'm the founder and president of Hello Barkada, and I'm excited to be joined today by Steenz to discuss their new book, Heart Takes the Stage.
Yay.
Yay! So Steenz, who cut their hand,
I
is a
did.
cartoonist and is a cartoonist, editor, and professor based in Do you say St. Louis or St. Louis?
I say St. Louis with
St.
an
Louis. Okay.
S. Yeah.
So they were based in St. Louis, Missouri. And they're the co-creator of the Dwayne McDuffie Award-winning graphic novel Archival Quality and the cartoonist of the Ringo Award-nominated syndicated comic strip Heart of the City. Their upcoming book, Heart Takes the Stage, releases, next week on May 5th.
I know. May 3rd. May 3rd. So
Tuesday. May 3rd. May 3rd.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So May 3rd. And features select Heart of the City comic strips that they have published since taking over the strip in April 2020. So welcome, Steenz.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
I know, right? Like, ooh, we're in talk show mode. So, I mean, first off, congratulations on this milestone.
Thank you.
2 years into Heart of the City. I mean, what's it feel like at this point to know that there has been enough that you've created where you're able to publish a collection of it?
Yeah.
This is about 200 pages?
Great question. You know what? Let me just open it and find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 200 pages. I think it's exactly 204 pages. Yeah, it's wild that it's finally all being collected. Well, bit by bit, because I have more than enough for a collection. This here is from the day I started in April to about November of 2020. So there's still many, many more comics to be collected. So I'm really hoping that, people really take to it and want to read more and use this as an opportunity to get caught up with the series. And maybe they can continue reading it on Go Comics, or perhaps they'll just, keep getting the collected editions. All of it. I want all of it. I think it's kind of nice to know that there's still more going on, because oftentimes you'll finish a book and people will be like, okay, great, where's the next one? And I can say, well, start at November 7th or something on Go Comics and you can get caught up to what's happening daily. So it's totally different than doing a graphic novel. There's a lot of different expectations.
Yeah, I mean, kind of coming to that, I'm imagining that the decisions on how you're going to break the layout of each strip, you had to come to some of these decisions. So what was that like, right? Because the way it spread on the newspaper versus
how it is in the book.
The advanced, what's the size?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is how big it is in person. And then once you get to the strips on the inside, they have made it so that they're like this, so it fills the page as far as it needs to, whether it's a Sunday or a Monday or whatever. And at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, just because layout wise, look at how much space, is on top and bottom. But then I was thinking how many other graphic novels, or rather how many other syndicated comic strips are collected into this size book. You think about Zitz and Calvin and Hobbes, and all of those are big, wide books that are made specifically for that stripped format. But because so many syndicated comics are trying to get into the middle grade world and the YA world, they want to be able to put it into books like these so that they can sell them at a better rate than just going to the humor section, So it did take a little bit to figure out what was going to work. And I mostly just trusted them, because I don't work in syndicated comics, So if they say that the way they do it is successful, then let's do that way. But I definitely had questions about it to begin with, because, I didn't want to change the format of the comic in the future just so that it fits into a book either. So, it was an interesting conversation, but yeah, they've got it down. I mean, they've been doing, Phoebe and Her Unicorn, Big Nate, all Breaking Cat News, I think, as well. Andrews McNeil has been doing, books in this format for, quite a few years now. So they know what works.
Yeah, and what's great about, as you say, is in comparison, because we have some of the older collections of other strips here at home, and this is very mobile. from what you're holding, right? So like it's really nice that it can be thrown into a bag, taken somewhere out, and you can go and read it. And that way too, it's like easy to share.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And then also like they also have to think about like where it's going to be shelved. And if it's going to be shelved next to the other books, like, you know, Scholastic, Little Brown, other YA and middle grade books, it needs to look like the other books, you know, because not just to keep it all together, but because we want it to fit on the shelf, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting thinking about that kind of production work ahead of time, just to make sure that it's sold where it needs to be sold.
Yeah. I love it. I've been like, it's so like, that's like the production nerd in me thinking like, oh, I love how they anticipated that.
Yeah.
I mean, now for those who have joined and maybe aren't familiar with Heart of the City, the arcs in this collection, because I so grateful for to see a PDF advanced reader copy. The arts in the collection, because of this, and the arcs of the strip, they run a variety of coming of age moments that show Hart and her friends Charlotte, Kat, and Dean figuring out. It is their first year of middle school, right?
Yes. Well, hold on. Middle school is 6th and 7th grade now, right? Or is it 6, 7, 8? So they're in 6th grade. So it's a big deal that she's in middle school, because she had been in elementary school before. He Mark Tutuli, the original creator, he had started it in middle school. He had started some of those middle school strips, but it was only really at the very beginning of her middle school career. So I really had an opportunity to like make it seem like this book is when she starts middle school, you know?
Right. Yeah, and that's great. And like, there are some, and I say coming of age, it's so funny, like that's such a huge genre. It's coming of age at any age, right? So like, it runs the gamut from the quintessential like ear piercing kind of arc where you got to convince the parent and the kind that, but then it covers also too what I really found interesting is the which you also teased on your Instagram, is the view of a teacher's strike from the perspective of each of the students. And I mean, you speak about, you bring up Mark Tutuli, who's the originator of the strip. Now, he started it in '98. At that time, Hart was like a little girl. Like,
oh yeah, she was itty bitty. Yeah, I think she was like 5 or 6. You know, she was small.
And so so by the time you took it over, and I was kind of in prep looking at trying to pinpoint it on Go Comics. I'm like, oh, where's the transition? Like, when did it happen?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because it looks like they had introduced. How did they introduce you? Because it looked like it was a little bit of a mix between what you were bringing into it and then maybe what were his. Maybe I would presume it was the Sundays that would come in.
Oh yeah. So because of how syndicated comics work, you have to turn in the comics ahead of time so that those newspapers can print them. And typically with Sunday comics, because those are usually in color, those need to be sent in before dailies do. So I'm always ahead on Sundays further than I am on dailies, because you just have to turn them in earlier because of that's just how it is. And so when I started the dailies in April of 2020, but I didn't start the Sundays until May of 2020 because he had already done the April ones, you know? So that was the only real overlap. And there wasn't really like an easing into a new character. It was more so like, this is a new a new creator now. He did find a really great way to end his run, and just like, I don't know, I love it when you have like clip show-esque situations. So, you know, going through all of Hart's old photos from the past, 20 years, it was really cool the way that he handed off. But, you brought up the different kinds of stories that are in there. And I know with this first collection, you'll kind of see that like I'm kind of like easing people into my style of humor, you know? Because like the first few stories are, like you say, are quintessential middle school kid problems. I want to get my ears pierced. I have to audition for the play, you know, stuff like that. But then I sort of started, once I got more comfortable drawing the characters and really understanding how they interact with each other, that's when I was like, okay, let's get weird stuff in here now. So Dean is lying about being cousins with Keanu Reeves. That's going to be one. Like, you know, I really want like outlandish and goofy stories, with also my, you know, deadpan humor as well. So yeah, I hope people can tell that that's what I was doing in the very beginning, because like with syndicated comics, the fans of syndicated comics expect the same thing every day. You know, it's always there. It's a constant. And so I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that was going to get new readers, but also something that was going to allow old readers to still feel like this is the heart of the comic still. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember reading at least like one comment from what seemed to be a longtime reader. And they commented about like, oh, there's that heart, like the heart, like that quality of heart, that kind of, and the kind of like seems to be like the friendship, like the connection between the other characters, that they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what I'm used to. And they like, oh, there it is. And like, we're just happy to see it.
Yeah, I definitely, like, I'm not gonna lie and say that I read every single Heart comic from Mark Tutuli, because that's absurd. I did read like a month or two of every year though. That way I was able to kind of understand what were some of the patterns he had over time, what were some of the storylines that I thought were really good. Like I really enjoyed all the storylines where, you know, Hart is trying to find and contact her father. And so I definitely put that into the book as well. Unfortunately, you don't get to that until the second collection. But, you know, there was a lot of stories in there that I wanted to still maintain as a part of the Hart storyline, you know, because, you know, I come from comics. I come from Batman and Superman. And, you know, if I'm going to be picking up on a superhero comic, I'm going to read the past comics to make sure that it all kind of matches. And so it was really interesting because my editor was like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. This is all you. You can do whatever you want with it. And I'm like, that's great. I hear you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure that it's somewhat still within the correct timeline and make sure, because, you know, there are people who've grown up with Hart.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just how syndicated newspaper comics are. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like a whiplash for people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because let's talk about some of the newness that you introduced. I mean, in addition to your drawing style, right? Like, it was really interesting and really great that I think you mentioned this in our past conversations, that the editors encourage you to use your style, not to necessarily try to interpret his into your own. But then what were some of the other elements? Like, was there a character or were there characters that you introduced, and any character traits? And I mean, we'll get to this later. I was going to say the fandoms, but let's hold on that one, because that one's a lot of fun. Yeah. What were some of the stuff that you added once you took over?
So, I mean, I noticed almost immediately that it seemed that Hart and Dean were like the main characters. And even though Kat was a side character, her personality was Hart's friend, you know, and that's not exactly a personality. So you've got Dean, who's like clearly like the biggest nerd on the planet, and then you've got Hart, who's like, you know, blinders on, eyes on the goal of being a super famous actress, you know. So those are very two clear personality traits, and I could not figure for the life of me what Kat's was. So I was like, I'm just gonna give her one then. Yeah, Kat officially has, you know, some three-dimensionality to her. And then I also introduced Charlotte, who was a new character. One thing I noticed was the group of people that she was around was very homogenized. You know, it was her mom, it was her babysitter, it was her neighbor Dean, you know. And then, but as you get older, you start to meet more people, you start to branch out and create relationships of your own rather than just people your mom took you to see, or you know. And so I was like, well, if that's the case, in middle school is when she starts branching out and finding new friends. I'm going to make sure that her friends represent the world that she lives in. You know, she lives in Philly, and Philly is 40% Black. And yet she didn't have any Black friends until I gave her one. And so I was like, okay, well, I need to make sure that this representation is there. And yeah, I think you noticed that Charlotte wears a shirt with a skull on it, and it's because I have a shirt with a skull on it, and it's from Toy Story. This is what the boy wore, in Toy Story. So this is one of my favorite shirts. And so I was like, I'm gonna have her wear it too, because, you know, gotta get inspiration from somewhere. And today was my closet. So I wanted to introduce some new characters through that, but I also wanted to introduce a villain as well. I say a villain, but it's really just like a rival to Hart, who is Dana on. And so at the very beginning, Dana is the one that's like, why are you being friends with this loser Charlotte, you know? But later on, it's like they're vying to be better than each other. And eventually, you know, their rivalness turns into perhaps a friendship. I don't know how to really explain it, but you just have to read the comic. You know, it's up every single day.
Well, so it was fun to, like, when the things I started to take away was, at least feeling as a reader, I was like, okay, there's nostalgia, because a lot of, you know, I'm like, and what's really interesting is I didn't go through get my ear pierced. Like, they were, my mom just authoritatively decided to get them pierced when I was like a kid, when I was a baby. But yeah,
I think that's like typical in
like
households of color, though, because I also had my ears pierced as a baby, but they're closed up, and so I had to re-ask to get them pierced again.
But yeah, like, there's that nostalgia, but then there's that, like, that tension between, and like in forming friendships or in vying for a similar thing that also still felt relevant, like as an adult. Like, oh yeah, like there's a moment where there's an arc where Hart is stressing. I want to say it was the moment she's stressing over, like, she hadn't yet memorized her lines.
Right. Yes.
And her mom, and then there's a suggestion of, like, you can ask your friends for help, and she's like, oh yes, like,
I suppose I could.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we still go through that now. That reminds me. But then also speaking to what you're saying about, you didn't know, like, Kat's previous role was just like best friend. But it's really interesting you bring that up, because I really did feel like each character, they work as a unit, but they also have their own stories.
Exactly.
They are their own.
I work really hard on that. I think, honestly, I think that's the part that I work on the most, is making sure that their individual relationships are accurate. Because, you know, when you are a young person and you have your group of friends, you have a different relationship with one friend than you do with another, you know? And a lot of, you know, comics and TV shows that I grew up with, when it was like a gang of kids, they were all equally friends. But I think some of my favorite things were like in Recess and Hey Arnold, when two side characters would hang out with each other, because then you got to see more of who they were without the lens of the main character. So that's something that I do try and get in there. Obviously, Hart is the main character, but I think I've really turned this into more of an ensemble. So Hart still gets the majority of stories, but the others get like right up close to it as well.
Yeah, that was one of the things I remember, and it's interesting how you say you eased people. Like, I felt that easing into leaving her lens. And like, not necessarily feeling afraid of it, just being like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm gonna get to see this character's kind of like a glimpse into their home life, or a glimpse into their relation, like you said, like relationship, how that rivalry becomes friendship between like Dean and Charlotte, or yeah, and that was really nice to see. It was a nice break. It would create like these breaks to like, okay, and then we get to touch back in with Hart and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that it's helpful because it builds the world, you know, like while Hart is the main character, you know, the world doesn't revolve around her, you know, and how the others interact affect how she interacts with them too. So I know later on in the series, you know, this may not just be in the first collection, Hart Takes the Stage, but later on we get to see other side characters come in, and we get to see more, you know, reoccurring characters, whether they're background characters or not, like Chris and John, Dean's friends, that aren't Hart and Charlotte and Kat, and they have their individual personalities as well. And so, you know, I want to be able to give them all the time that they need to grow and be these like whole characters, but I also want to do it in a way where you're still reminded that this is Hart's story, you know? And I think that's like, I've been using Hart kind of like as a mirror almost, or maybe like if something happens, like for example, okay, so this isn't in Hart Takes the Stage, but later on, Hart gets invited to Charlotte's house for a barbecue. And while she's there, she's like getting more ketchup, and she overhears some adults saying, "Oh yeah, it's been a really good turnout. You know, Charlotte brought her white friend Hart." And Hart is like, "Oh my God, I'm the white friend." And so she like has to have that conversation with Charlotte, like, what is this about? And Hart's like, or Charlotte's like, it's about nothing. I mean, that's just who you are, you know? So it's like those kinds of conversations do happen to kids at this age, and we just don't see enough of that in comics. And it doesn't have to be like a huge thing, because Hart gets over it almost immediately. You know, she's like, okay, that's fine. I didn't mean to make things weird. I'll just be your coolest white friend. And Charlotte's like, great, go for the gold, girl, you know? So that sort of thing still didn't really place Hart as the main character. It was still about, you know, Charlotte and getting to have her friends over. It was still about Kat being able to like talk to her crush at this barbecue. So, you know, it was a lot of things that were happening in that one arc, but Hart was still able to be the one to kind of narrate us through, even though it wasn't entirely about her, you know?
Right. Yeah. So yes. And like you said, when you say mirror, do you mean like a reflection of the reader's real life experience? Or
I think it more like when things happen, they don't happen to Hart, they happen around Hart, and Hart gets to reflect on those things outside of it. So instead of, you know, Charlotte, or instead of Hart being the one to be like, I want to make a new friend in Charlotte, it's Charlotte who's like, let's be friends, you know? So, and I think that helps me as well, because then I'm not too stuck in the mindset of I have to create this lifestyle for Hart from my own experiences, because I don't have the same experiences that she has. You know, I didn't have a single mother. I had both my parents. I'm not white. I don't live in Philly, you know, so I'm doing the best I can to give life to these characters from my own experiences and without my own experiences. And so Hart happens to be less referential to my own life and more so referential to how people can interact with others.
Great. Let's also, though, talk about how you seem to have infused some of your interests in particularly the pop, like I mentioned earlier, the pop culture fandom.
Yeah.
So just for, I mean, I'm like, for people who are going to go out, and you should go out and get this book once it's released on May 3rd. Within the first 40 pages, this is what I caught. There were references to Star Wars, Star Trek, Ghost Hunters, the animated musical of Anastasia, Yeah. And I bring up, I'm like, no, we have to know that because
It's specifically the animated one.
it is
Because you can see it in the costumes.
yeah. Cats,
Yeah.
because theater nerd. Rocky, which I thought was so great because it's totally meta. The Legend of Zelda and Dragon Ball. That was just the four. Did I miss any references?
Yeah, not in the first 40. I think later on we also get gargoyles. So yeah, I mean, I think about what it was like when I was 12, and it was all fandoms. I spent all of my time online reading like, HP fandoms, and playing video games and reading manga, reading comics. You have so much time to do all of that stuff as a child that I really wanted to make sure that it was a part of it. And I also think it helps readers see that these kids are like real. They're not like kids in a entirely fictional world. I don't know. I want to grab so much from reality because that's how you keep readers. But also there's no COVID in this world,
Yeah.
so there are slight differences. And I remember when I first signed on to the project, a lot of people were like, how come there's no COVID in Heart of the City? And I was like, because I live it. Why would I want to write about like depressing shit? I'm not going to, and it's like, it's my choice to decide how to make this syndicated comic. And some syndicated comics are current event gags, and some of them are story focused. You're not going to go to Mark Trail and be like, how come he isn't masked up? You're not going to ask Brenda Starr what she thinks of the war in Ukraine. Like some of these are just story focused, So I don't think I could do a current events gag strip.
Right.
It would take too much time, and it would I think it would make it too close close to home.
And still, but there is still in real life references, like
Yeah.
I love, like, it's not BuzzFeed, it's BuzzNet,
Yeah. I also like
Um,
making up that sort of stuff. Like I
that
think
is so fun.
later on, instead of Street Fighter, it's Avenue Fighter.
Yeah, I love that. And then there's what I thought was really fun though was the way that you captured their interaction over text. Yeah, it was over their mobile phone. So like and they're talking about binging a show and like what that because was it rainy that day?
Yeah, there was just like, you couldn't go outside. It was still during the summer. And so she just decided to binge watch all of Gargoyles because that's what all her other friends were doing. And she was like, I'm not going to do that. And then she does it. And she's like, I shouldn't have done this. But yeah, I do like including those kinds of interactions because in our world that we live in, the majority of interactions that we have are through our phones. Like I don't remember the last time I had like a face-to-face conversation with any of my best friends. It's mostly over the phone. And so obviously I don't want the comic to just be screenshots, but I do want to make sure that it's included because it is a large part of childhood at the moment.
Yeah, I love how it's I think about how this would be viewed at in like 20 years because as you mentioned in a previous conversation, you're gonna run it for like 30.
Right.
And I love that so then now it's this great like timestamp, like this is the time kind of, it's still a reflection of what our experience is like and what middle schoolers' experience was like at this point, without it, like you said, like without it having to get all the way real with, and they were also messed up. Like even the illusion of having to stay home because it was raining is still kind of like an illusion of what we've had to go through these last couple of years. So that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where are you? Where are you in drawing out the series? Are you into the end of the year?
Drawing wise, I am in May of 2022. Writing wise, I am in January of 2023. So 22 is all written, which is so nice. I don't understand how, like, I talked to Olivia of Nancy fame, and she was like, she makes up new stuff every week. And that's like, just like one day a week, she'll just go out and she'll just think about, okay, how do I want to go across this entire week? And then she has it. And in my head, I'm like, that's magic. Because for me, I could never wake up and be like, what am I going to do today? No, I need to have it planned months in advance, or else I won't do it, you know? So yeah, I'm pretty ahead when it comes to writing. But drawing wise, I'm in May. So mid-May, end of May.
And so then, because you're not stopping working on the comic strip,
No.
this is getting prepared, how did it feel like to I mean, you're not pausing, but you have to take a moment, right? How did it feel to go back 2 years and look at your work?
I mean, I don't like it.
Where you are today.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but I don't think any creator is a fan of looking at their past work. You know, like, I look at the first book and I'm like, all I see are mistakes. All I see are things that I would change. So I wish I could tell you that it's like a warm and amazing feeling to go back and read it, but it's not. I mean, it's really cool to, like, it's bittersweet, because it's like, I love holding it. I love knowing that it is complete. I love knowing that people are going to be able to read Heart of the City without having to go online, go comics, or without having to have it in their newspaper. That makes accessibility huge, having it in this book format. And I just really like being able to hand somebody what I have done, rather than saying, oh, well, you have to go and read it on this website, you know? So there's a lot of great things about going back and being like, wow, this really is the beginning of Heart of the City, you know? But on the other hand, it's like, I don't need to look at it too close, because I'm honestly only going to want to change things. Which, you know, it's interesting that I do that, because, like, with archival quality, I feel the same way. I look through it and I'm like, this is trash. I'm just being honest. Like, I wish I could be kinder to myself, but but what's nice about Heart of the City is that if I do see something that I feel like I need to change that, I need to work on this, I can. I'll change it the next strip that I draw, you know? So every strip shows that I'm either getting better or making changes or getting more comfortable with something. And personally, I think it's incredibly obvious. Like, I feel like you can see from strip to strip to strip the changes that I make. But that's just because I drew it, you know? But I do really appreciate being able to look back and make changes and have those changes come into effect later on in the series, rather than if I had a graphic novel. It's like, I can't go back and redo archival quality, you know, nor would I want to. It's 247 pages. But you see what I'm saying? You know, it's a different feeling knowing that there will be more.
Yeah. So you've already alluded to this. Is there already a second collection in the works?
Yes. So I actually got a 2-book deal. So I actually have to start working on the cover and the title for book 2 in the next like week or two. Like, really, really soon. I'm hoping that it does really, really well, because I would love for people to, like, get to the current stories. You know, obviously all the stories are good, but I think some of the current stories are really, really strong, and my drawing has just, like, blossomed. So I'm really hoping that the first 2 books do well, so that they want to keep making them.
Well, let's make sure it does, right? So
yeah, that's right. Everybody watching, please buy 2 copies, one for yourself, one for a friend.
It's so fun. Like, yes, that was how I'm like, I want to, let's pitch it like that. I just completely out of on the side, I just watched the interview of Oprah and Viola Davis on Netflix, And that was how
Yes.
Oprah ended that interview. And I was like, yes, we're going to do the same thing for Steenz.
That's
Buy one for
right.
yourself, buy one for a
Buy
friend.
one for a friend. Yeah, I
Um,
actually did something similar with my business stickers. So I have business stickers rather than business cards.
I
And
love
so
it.
I would give people two. I say one to keep and the other one for graffiti. So it's like I'm really trying to spread that brand.
So we are taking questions. Hi, everyone who is joining so far. We do have one question so far.
Ooh, great.
Oh, so Freely Angeli asked, how many pages is Heart? In case they missed it at the beginning.
Yeah, so the first collection is 204 pages. And it takes up from April 27th to I think it's November 7th or so. Something like that. But yeah, 204 pages of comics.
Nice. Yeah. And so if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to like drop it in the as we wait, if you have any. What other events or promotions do you have planned with this release?
Yes. So on Tuesday, May 3rd, when it releases, I will be on Liana Kangas's Twitch stream. We're going to be talking about comics and about Heart of the City. And then that evening, I will be at Betty's Books in St. Louis, Missouri. I'll be signing copies of Heart of the City. And not only will I be signing copies, but you'll also be able to enter into a raffle where you can either win the Steenz cartoonist box or the Steenz editorial box. And so the cartoonist box has all of the books that I've drawn, and then the editorial box are all the books that I've edited. So I really hope that you come to that book signing because I love signings a lot. And then I'm also doing a signing on Free Comic Book Day, which is May 7th this year, Saturday, May 7th. I will be at Fantasy Books and Games in Fairview Heights, Illinois. I'll be there from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Signing books. They have a huge store, so it's going to be a huge day for them. It's going to be really, really big.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how great to start this up again. Yeah. So we did have another question. Is what is your favorite ship in your fandoms?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is a very old and dated fandom, but I just got into it recently. I would say Mac and Harm from Jag. I don't know if you have ever watched Jag. It is a spinoff, or it is what NCIS spun off from. And it is a show that I've been watching religiously for the past few months. So there's that. Gosh, what else? I know.
Let's tell that story. How are you watching all of them from? Because
So the story, I originally was going to watch them on TV, and then I saw that they only had like a couple episodes on that were being,
rerun.
what is it? Yeah, reruns. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch it on Paramount Plus because it's a CBS show. And so I go there, and they only have 64 episodes out of the like 200 that there are. There are like 600, like 60 episodes only. And so I was like, where did all the episodes go? Apparently, CBS lost those rights for some of those episodes because the sheer amount of permissions they need to get. I'm talking like Bill Clinton is in an episode. I'm pretty sure he's not gonna want to like A-OK that to be live anymore. So I had to buy the box set. So I have the full box set of Jag seasons 1 through, how many seasons were there? 8, 10, whatever. Either way, I have it all. So
in perpetuity, and now no one's ever taken them away from you.
That's right.
Henry's asking, have you had crawdads lately?
Oh, man, I had crawdads with Henry in Houston, Texas, in 2019, and I think about it often. And I have not had crawdads since, but I have had king crab since. So, I mean, it just sounds like I need to go back to wherever Henry is at the moment and go get crawdads again because it's a great experience.
If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and drop them. What was I going to? Oh, and so then the book is going to come out on May 3rd. But it can be pre-ordered right now. So if you wanted to pre-order it from your local comic book store, or your preferred online bookseller. And as we've mentioned already, get one for yourself and then get one to gift to a friend. I want crab too. Y'all talking about crab? King crab. Yes, and then as you mentioned several times too, the current ones. How can people see the ones that are coming out in real time?
Yeah, so you can either go to gocomics.com / Heart of the City, or if you just go to gocomics.com, Heart of the City is on the front page. So go there and you can see new comments every single day. I am working nonstop so that you guys can get comics every day for the next 30 years. You can also read it in your local newspaper. I know if you're here in St. Louis, it is in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I know that it's in quite a few newspapers nationally. I feel like close to 100, but I need to figure out exactly where they are. I just know that they're all over the nation. So if your city does not have Heart of the City, you can always reach out to your newspaper and suggest it to them, and they'll do all the work to figure it out. It was really funny when Heart first made it to the Post-Dispatch. I was really excited because it's, here in my town, and I was talking to Olivia about it, of Nancy fame, and I found out that in order to put Heart in, they took Nancy out. And I was like, I'm so sorry. That was not my intention.
Right.
But we're still homies, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, that's a shame. Like, why can't they coexist?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I was like, of all the ones you want to take out Nancy, trailblazing Nancy, but okay, it's fine. I can't look a gift horse in the mouth. I don't know that idiom. I don't even know why I attempted it, but yeah.
I couldn't help you. So yeah, I think that's right.
Great.
Well, thank you, Steenz, for taking the time tonight to discuss the collection, and congratulations again on this next milestone, which is actually the first of two, right? Because the second one is in the works. And thank you too to everyone who joined us tonight for the second episode of Aloud. A recording of this conversation will be posted on Hello Barkada's IG video feed, and then eventually on Hello Barkada's YouTube channel. I like to actually go and correct the auto captions, which is why that will take a little bit longer. And then, so when those are available, I will post an announcement on all of our socials. And if you could, please go ahead and share them with folks, because we want more people to know about Heart Takes the Stage coming out.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.